It's Sandy Parker, and welcome to Crafting for Almost Everyone. Today we're going to make a little waterfall card, and the waterfall part of it is going to be small, and it's going to be Easter themed with some fun little animals. Hope you'll stay tuned. So I wanted to start out with an easy background for it, and I like these flowers and this Floral Doodle paper from Love Nicole. It's from Ache Supracolor. So what I thought I would do is color them in so that they would match the background a little bit better. So all I'm doing is simply taking watercolor pencils and coloring in my background very quickly, very simply. Nothing exciting, let me tell you. I'm just going to quickly scribble in the flowers. I'm using the same the same color for the larger flowers, and then the same color for the smaller flowers. As I said, just scribbling it because we're going to wet it and it will immediately melt out the lines and all the weirdness that I end up having in anything I do. Okay, now I've got my water brush and I'm just squeezing out some water to get it flowing, and then we're going to color in our flowers. I thought that would be more orange than it was. It's a lot more yellow than I thought it would be. Oh well, these things happen. Okay, I think that'll look okay on this paper. So that's my background color. Let's come up with our paper sizes. The first thing you're going to need is a card base that is 8.5 inches. 8.5 inches by 5.5, and you're going to score it at 4 1/4 so that it ends up being an A2 size card, which is 5.5 by 4 1/4. So that's those. So we're done with those. We'll have to set those aside. So the first thing we're going to do is we've got our background, and I've put this one together just so you can see it. That's an 8.5 inch by 5.5 inches tall. I should have made it making a top fold card, but in the end it's still going to be opening this way, but my design is going to be up and down. So your next layer, which is a plain color, is going to be 5 1/4 by 4 inches, and then your designed paper is going to be 5 1/8 by 3 7/8. You know I always put this information down below, but I wanted to make sure I gave it to you anyway. We're going to need 4 2 by 2 inch pieces of the same color as your background of your cardstock. Then you're going to need 4 1 by 7/8. These are squares that are white. You're going to need those to layer on top of these. So you need 4 of these and 4 of those. Again, it's all down below. And then lastly, you need 2 other pieces. You need a 9 inch by 2 inch that we're going to score on. That's why I have my scoreboard out. And a 4 inch by 1 inch piece of the same color. So we're going to take our scoreboard and we're going to score it on the 9 inch length. We're going to score it starting at 2 inches then 2 3/4, then 3 1/2, and 4 1/4. And that's all of our scoring. You're going to need some kind of adhesive, and I'm going to use the adhesive that was right here. My glue dot that I just got, this is super strength, and we're going to put it on the backs of our white pieces. If you've ever looked at paper you've trimmed, there's usually a piece, a side of it that's kind of rougher looking. That's your back. So just in case you ever wondered about that, I'm just trying to get these lined up as close to straight as I can, and you know that's not the greatest for me. Okay. So here are our 4 stamped images. Now, what you're going to do is, remember we already made our base that looks like this. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our 9-inch piece of cardstock, and we're just going to fold it really well so it bends back and forth both ways. Every one of your scores you want to be able to bend back and forth really, really easily. See that? That's important because that's what's going to make your waterfall, if you know what I mean. Okay. Then you're going to take tear tape. Tear tape is important, I think, for this because it's the strongest tape and it's a thin tape. And the very first piece we're going to put a line directly under our score, right there, on each of our scores, right under the score line. Because they have to be able to still bend, but you don't want the image to be over that line, because then it'll make it so you can't bend it back and forth. Okay, now we're ready to do our stamping, because this was the thing we're going to be putting everything on. So now we're going to do our stamping, and this is a kind of a 2-step stamping system where you have the animal, the outline of the animal in one stamped image, and then the center of the animal is like an Easter egg, and we're going to stamp that in another color. And I'm going to use Onyx Black VersaFine ink for my background of each of my animals. Oh, before I do that, I want to stamp something on the inside so I don't forget. I have this little Love You that came in the same stamp set, and I thought I would put that underneath. You just want it in the bottom section of the underneath of this stamp set, and I'll show you more as we go along. I'll get this out of the way for now, and then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab colors we want to use for this, and they are oranges and yellows. Alright, I'm going to use all little ones except for this one. This one is Tangelo Twist, and it's a Stampin' Up! Ink. And then we're going to be using Cantaloupe in the Mementos, Tangelo, and Dandelion. I think I'm going to change this maybe to, no, I'm going to go with it. I was hoping that I had one that was just orange, you know what I mean? So that we could go with that, but I didn't have that. Alright, so then we're going to grab all of our stamps. I've already stamped one of them accidentally before I got everybody on board, and I already got a boo-boo on that one, so we'll have to work on that. And I'm going to use the same bunnies as I used on my other set I did. And of course you haven't seen that yet because I finished it off camera. And put that bunny like that. And then take that bunny and put him away. Okay. So we got all of our bunnies in place. First thing we're going to want to do next is I decided I wanted to put my strip in here and get it ready to go. And so what you're going to do with that is, well, you don't have to do this, but I wanted to. I have this punch called, I'm going to just make this up, Kodomaro Pro. Kodomaro. I'm so sorry. I hacked that up. I'm sorry. But I got it from Amazon, and it's got a small, medium, and large corner rounder. And it's really nice for things like this because you slide your teeny tiny piece in. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to use my arm on this. And then you get that little wee edge. Then you turn it and slide the other edge in, just like that. And then we're going to turn it and do the other side. Oh, that did not want to do a very good job. It has a little fuzz left on it. Let's try that again. Well, good enough. One more trim. And then our 4 edges are now cutely rounded. So that is going to be the first step. Then the next thing we're going to do is, I thought it'd be pretty, well, I'll show you the other card in a minute, but I thought it'd be pretty to put these little brads that are white pearlescent, I think you'd call it. And we're going to do a couple of those, and that's what they look like on top. Now, before I go any further with these, I don't know about you, but a lot of times in card making, brads are not made a lot of times for card making because the legs on them are too long. So if you don't have these kind of scissors from Tim Holtz, I really recommend you buying them because they work really well for things like this. And I separate these and cut them off just so they're not as long. And it's not they're not really thick, so I don't have trouble cutting through them most of the time. For those of you who are keeping up on my prednisone problem, where I was on it for 2 years or 3 years, I don't know how long, and I'm trying to go off of it. Well, I did wean off of it completely, and then 2 weeks after I weaned off of it, I had all kinds of problems with swelling. I mean, my elbows were like rhinoceros elbows. You know what a rhinoceros elbow looks like. Well, if you don't, think about hippo elbows. They were very, very, very swollen, and it got to the point that they were so swollen that my pinkies were getting all tingly because the nerves were pinched. So that wasn't fun, and I called my doctor, and she had me go on some more prednisone. And so I'm back on a little bit of it and feeling a little bit better, which is good. Okay, now the way that I do this isn't like a lot of people, but I'm not like a lot of crafters. I'm going to put a little dot with a black Sharpie right there, and then I'm going to turn it around and try to make it in the same spot on the other side. That's a little bit too far, but that's okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hole punch. Okay. So what I do with this is a hole punch where you push on this little button, and normally I can usually push this, but today not so much. So what I do is I turn it upside down and I line it up until you can see the black mark from Sharpie. Can you see that? Hopefully you can. And I'm going to have to take it off screen to do it, but that's how I line it up to be able to punch the hole for my brad. And a lot of people don't do holes for their brads. They just, oh, it's really way off. Well, we'll hope nobody will notice that. Most people that do brads just kind of use a pokey tool and punch through. But I notice when I do that, that I end up having my cardstock get all wrinkled. And it doesn't look good, and I don't like it. So instead, I do this so it's easier for me, and my cardstock doesn't look all ruffled or wrinkled. Wrinkled is the word. I was coming up with a word. I was hoping all of you could vote on that word that I couldn't come up with, but finally it came out. Look how you can't even tell that they're completely crooked. See how I taught you a valuable lesson about brads? Doesn't matter how far off, no one will notice. Okay, we're going to put some not foam tape, we're going to put some tape. I'm going to put some on the insides of this. so that I end up having tear tape that's actually going to hold. And then I'm going to put another piece on or beside my brad. And then I'm going to rub it really hard and take off the backing. Before we go any further with that, that's when we glue it to the front of the card, I'll tell you about stamping the inside of the card. I messed it up. You can see that I pushed on it and it got wonky. So I had this extra piece of the front cardstock, and I thought I'll just make a card within a card. I thought it would be fun to duplicate the rounded edges that we did on the front. So, ooh, this thing's shooting out of my hand. So I guess I'm going to go with the middle size. Alright, then we're going to put some tear tape on the back of this. Always good to have tear tape where you need it. And no one knows why we put that little card on a card inside. They don't have to know. That's our secret, right? I can put it up a little higher so in case I want to do something else. Is it crooked? Probably. We're going with it. And it just says wishing you a happy Easter. And when we do our envelope, if we have something that we want to put on top of it, like something more 3D, or if we want to do some peg stamping around it, we can do that. Now, I made this card and I thought I had enough of an orange tone going on, but I don't think I do. So I'm going to try and find a more orange pencil. This one better be, because it's called orange. Let's see if we can get more of an orangey tone. And I'm just going to do some of these so that we get enough orange in here that we can get the colors to match up a little bit better. Most of this won't show because we'll have the 3D piece over it, but my water brush has decided it wants to absorb all the colors that went into it. So I don't know if you can see how bad my water is discolored in my water brush, but it's really odd looking. Okay, we're going to let that dry up a little bit. Okay, now it's time for our colors. I didn't realize this is such an odd tone. It's kind of like halfway between yellow and orange. It's very dull. So let's go with this dandelion color. And we got our Easter egg. And we'll do him first. And I'll give you some tips from the first one that I did. And that is, anyway, when you do this the first time, what happens is your ink is splotchy. And even though I tried to get my ink to not be splotchy, it didn't work. Okay, now I'm not sure how you're supposed to do this egg because I have my egg right up to the tail and still his head isn't right. So I'm not sure. This is what happened with the last one, but I'm just saying I'm not exactly sure. I'm going to put that on there so I know which is which. And then this one is Tangelo, and we'll stamp him up. So what I did the first time is if I had splotchy eggs, or my bunny looked all splotchy, then I went over it and re-stamped it. There's that one. He's not nearly as splotchy, but he still is a little splotchy. Then I'm going to go to, I've already got the Tangelo twist out. Let's see, it's much darker. He's a lot easier to stamp because how could I screw this up? His body is right in the center of that little fella. He's not splotchy at all. Maybe I should have stuck to that the whole time. Okay, I have one more color. Just looks like I'm bleeding. Well, I definitely will stamp over the yellow one because that one is definitely splotchy. The first yellow one. This one looks like it's going to be splotchy too. Let's see if I can. I'm sorry if I wasn't in camera for any of these. Alright, so let's stamp over these again. I'm going to do the cantaloupe one because it's closest to me and I just did it. I noticed that when I stamped them twice that the splotchiness was a lot better. And if I had a darker color, what I also noticed was I had to restamp the black. If I stamped the darker color a second time, then I also had to stamp the black a second time. Just because if I didn't, then it was just too, the black, the outline of the rabbit was just kind of missing. I don't know, I'm sure you can see how splotchy this fella is. Get that one. Sorry if I'm out of camera when I have to pull it closer to me. But it's either that or you see the top of my head for a long time. Alright, so that is that. Get my eraser and erase that off a little bit if I can. Now, let's go on to our next step. If you recall, this is our 9" by 2" piece of cardstock that we scored in a bunch of places. I put a piece of tear tape underneath the score lines, not on top of, but underneath, right underneath those score lines. Do you see that? I hope you do. So now I'm going to take the tape off of these, and one at a time, we're going to put our bunnies down. I'll put this little fella on the bottom. You want to center this one up so it's below the score line, but it's centered as best we can on the paper. And then you're going to really make sure it's attached. And I'm going to go with this one and put it directly under the score, and hopefully straight. And again, really push down on that because we want that tear tape to work. Next up, I'm going to go with another yellow one. So we're going to put this little bugger lined up with the other ones. See how they're all lined up like that, and then you want to make sure it's really adhered. And then our Tangelo bunny that had the best ink. So we're going to just rub them all down. Okay, now the next thing you're going to do, remember we put the tear tape on both sides of the brad. We're going to attach this to the front of our card. Oh wait, before we do that, I want to put a hole in the bottom of this. We want to make sure that our hole is far enough up that it won't tear if you pull on it. And since the point of this is that you pull it, we want to make sure it's far enough up. Got it? Sure you do. And we're going to do the same thing we did before, where we're going to line it up so that we see our hole. We're going to put, I think I'm going to go with a white piece of ribbon. This kind of ribbon is great for things like this project because this ribbon is very, very thin, and the problem with this kind of ribbon is that it's also really tricky to keep in a bow, so it doesn't work good for bows. That's why it's so good for this kind of project, because we're not making a bow. I fold my ribbon over like that, and then I'm going to push it through from the back. So I'll lay it on the back. Then you're going to take your scissors or a pokey tool, whatever you want, and you're going to push it through that hole. You want to make sure you don't let the ends go through, because when you have that loop, you're going to take the other ends that are loose, and you're going to open up your loop and pull those two ends through it like that, so that when you look at it, you see how it is now. It's got that little loop on it. The next thing you want to do is you want to get a glue dot, a small glue dot. Take your pokey tool. I have a very small glue dot on my finger, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this over, and you see where that loop is on your ribbon. You're going to open it up a little bit, and you're going to slide that little glue dot that's kind of rolled up underneath that loop, and you're going to pull it up like that. Now that's on the back. No one's going to see it. It makes sure that your ribbon doesn't go anywhere. This loop doesn't unloop. Is that a word? I don't know. But it'll keep it so that it's going to stay there just like that for as long as you need it to. And then I'm going to separate out my little strings like that. Okay, so there's where we stand now. We're going to take our piece of frame, I made up a word. We're going to take our card base. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm going to take the backings off of the tear tape that's on the back of this little strip. Okay, I watched a woman do this video called Positively Papercrafts, and the only thing she did a good job, the only thing she didn't really explain was what she was doing with this when she moved it around and where she was putting this. Now you cannot put any glue on the center section of this 4-inch piece. That's not going to work. I think I'm going to put my tear tape on this, and I'm going to put it near the top of it. Okay, so we're going to take our long part with the ribbon on it, and we're going to slide it under this piece. We're going to ignore those dogs because they're insane. Then we're going to line up our bottom. Now, before I do that, I want to round those corners too. So here's what I ended up having to do in the end, because I couldn't get my, I put this strip up too high. You're going to want to move that strip down. I would say have it end about 1 inch from the bottom. I put it right about there, because what I had to do is I had to add another, I don't know if you can see that, I added another piece to that to extend it down and hide it at the same time. Yeah, I did a little MacGyver thing there so that you could, so the card would actually work without having to redo the whole card. And all I did was, as I said, I just attached about a piece that went to about here. So let's see if we can get it to work. I have to pull it kind of sideways to do it. And then the last piece only goes to like that, and then goes back down. That's the best I could do. I didn't see her do hers to see if she made it work, but I mean, I know she made the first 3 flip, but the 4th one I didn't see her flip. And then this is the first one that I told you all about that is brighter colors, and when I did this one I thought I had it working. It says you are simply the best. I thought I had it working so that all 4 came up, but that 4th one gets kind of stuck and you have to pull everybody else down. So I actually like the second system better, where it's not it doesn't get stuck, but the 4th one doesn't completely. See how that one just stays like that? The other ones don't get stuck when you do it this way. And the glue is about halfway down his body where I have it attached to the next piece. So if I would have, you can see where his body is, so you know that the paper, or the paper, this color paper is underneath him, and there's tear tape in this section so that when you pull it, he won't move, but everything else does. I hope that made sense. I'm really sorry that it didn't work out the way I wanted it to, but you know me, that's what happens. Let's put our stamp on the back of each of them so I can get them in the mail to our great nephews and nieces and their kids. Okay, there's, ooh, not too good on that one. And then I thought all I would do is on our envelopes, ooh, things are flying everywhere here, folks. I thought on our envelopes all I would do is take one of our crazy rabbits. I'll do him on both envelopes. Put him on the front right there. Then I'm going to do Bunny on this one. And a Bunny on the end. Jeez. Not very dark, huh? I'll have to do him twice, that's for sure. And this bunny is going to be in the orange color. Okay, so that's both bunnies, and our envelopes are done. You know I love making fun fold cards, and I think these ones were kind of frisky. And at first when I made the purple one, I was like, oh, I'm not sure about that one. But over time I kind of have come to love the brightness of it. And then this one is a little bit more sedate, but still pretty fun. I hope you enjoyed this, that you'll give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Please tell your friends about me on social media, and have a very, very happy Easter. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.